Do you think a child can save a man who doesn't even know she exists? That question haunted Nathan Bennett every single night since the day a barefoot little girl ran out of the shadows and screamed for him not to get into his car just seconds before it would have killed him. She wasn't a guardian angel. She was just a 6-year-old girl, terrified and trembling, who had nothing and yet risked everything. Her name was Emily. She had been hiding in his garage for months, living on scraps unseen by the dozens of people in his mansion. She watched him, listened, knew things no one else did, and in one impossible moment she shattered the wall between them and rewrote both their fates. What followed wasn't just a scandal. It was a storm of betrayal, secrets, and redemption. But it wasn't the courtroom or the headlines that changed everything. It was what came after. The silence, the healing, the love neither of them expected. And just when it seemed they were safe, someone came back. Stay with us, because what's about to happen next will leave you speechless. Emily's eyes snapped open at exactly 6 a.m., just like every morning. The low rumble of a pickup truck echoed in the distance. That was the gardener arriving. 30 minutes later, the cleaning lady would come in through the side entrance. Then at 7:15 sharp, Mr. Nathan Bennett's sleek black Audi would pull up to the circular driveway of the Pacific Heights mansion. Emily knew it all by heart. She had been living in the mansion's abandoned garage for nearly 3 months, hiding behind dusty toolboxes and under forgotten tarps. She was only 6, but she moved like a shadow, silent, invisible, unnoticed. Her stomach growled painfully, but she couldn't risk sneaking into the kitchen last night. Vanessa, Nathan's fiancée, had stayed up late, pacing through the house in heels, talking in a hushed and urgent voice on the phone. Emily had waited and waited, but eventually fell asleep, hungry again. She tiptoed to the garage window and peeked out. From there, she could see part of the main house towering flawless, wrapped in cold beauty. It felt like another world compared to the alleys and shelters she'd known before. And then there was him, Nathan Bennett, the man who owned everything. The cars, the house, the perfect life. He was tall, always in tailored suits, his shoes shining like mirrors. But there was something strange about him, something not quite like the others Emily had seen in mansions like this. Sometimes he'd stand alone on the second-floor balcony, staring into the fog-covered city like he was searching for something that wasn't there. Other times he'd talk to himself in the garage, always when he was cleaning his prized red Mustang. That car was his world. Emily could see it even through the shadows, the way he'd brush his hand across the hood, whispering as if it were alive. "Tomorrow's gonna be a hard day, old friend," he had said last night. Vanessa wanted him to sign the marriage papers, but his voice had trembled. He was afraid of something. Emily couldn't say why, but she knew fear when she saw it. She had lived with it all her life, and she had seen things. The past 2 weeks, Vanessa had been acting strange, receiving mysterious packages, speaking in whispers, sneaking down to the garage at night. Once Emily had heard her with a man. It wasn't Nathan. It was someone else. A deeper voice. Rough, angry. They were standing by the Mustang, and the words they spoke chilled her blood. "He always drives the car after something stressful," Vanessa had said. "It's the perfect time," the man replied. "One sharp turn and he's gone." Emily had clamped her hand over her mouth to stop a gasp. She hadn't told anyone. Who would believe her? She was a dirty, hidden child, barely surviving in someone else's garage. But today was different. It was their wedding day. From the tiny window, she could see white chairs lined across the lawn, elegant guests sipping champagne, and photographers snapping pictures like nothing was wrong. Vanessa wore a stunning white gown, smiling flawlessly, but Emily saw through it. Her eyes weren't smiling. They never did. Nathan looked distant. He had on a navy suit, crisp and clean, but he wasn't present. His gaze kept drifting. He was nervous, just like she was. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. She had to act. She couldn't let him get in that car. She considered the phone she had found in the trash weeks ago, an old flip phone, cracked but able to record. She had used it to capture the muffled voices in the garage just in case. She had even tried to write Nathan a letter, slipping it into the mailbox outside. But she had seen Vanessa find it and burn it without a word. No one would believe a hidden girl with nothing but torn clothes and eyes too wide from fear. Still, she had to try. Hours dragged on. The wedding ended, the crowd thinned, and soft jazz began playing through the house speakers. Emily crouched tense. She could hear the footsteps coming down the stairs to the garage. Nathan. He came in alone, as he always did when he needed to clear his mind. He walked toward the Mustang, keys in hand, muttering, "Let's get out of here, buddy. Just a quick drive." He reached for the door handle, and Emily ran. "Don't get in the car," she screamed, bursting from behind the crates like a shot of lightning. Nathan froze, stunned. "What? Who are you?" he stammered. Emily's voice cracked, but she pushed forward. "They cut the brakes, Vanessa and a man. I heard them. They were in the garage last night." At that moment, Vanessa appeared at the top of the stairs. "What is she doing here?" she demanded, trying to sound shocked. "She's a squatter, probably trying to steal something." Emily shook her head desperately. "She's lying. She and a man, his name is Derek, they were here. They were planning to hurt you?" "I heard everything." Vanessa descended quickly. "Nathan, don't listen to this. Kids like her make up stories to get attention." Nathan didn't move. He was staring at Emily hard. "What did you hear?" he asked softly. "They said the brakes wouldn't work on the first turn, and that she'd get all your money after it happened." The room went still. Vanessa turned pale. "This is insane," she whispered. "She's a liar." But Nathan's expression had changed. His doubt was slipping away. There was something in Emily's eyes, something raw and real, something impossible to fake. He took a step back, then pulled out his phone. "Send a mechanic. Now. I think my car's been tampered with." Within 30 minutes, the police arrived with Nathan's trusted mechanic, Mike Andrews. Mike slid under the Mustang with a flashlight. Moments later, he crawled out looking horrified. "Jesus, Nate, someone cut your brake lines. If you'd driven this thing, you wouldn't have made it past the hill." Vanessa screamed that it was a lie. She pointed at Emily, called her a manipulative brat, but it was over. Her phone was confiscated. On it, the police found messages, conversations with Derek Lawson planning every detail of the accident. Vanessa was arrested on the spot, but Emily didn't stay to watch the rest. Social services had already arrived, leading her gently out of the mansion she had called her secret home. No one knew who she was, where she came from. Not yet. And Nathan stood in the garage alone, staring at the little girl who had just saved his life. How far would you go to protect someone who doesn't even know you exist? If this story has touched your heart, don't forget to leave a heart on the video. Nathan didn't sleep that night. He sat in the same garage where just hours earlier he had come within seconds of dying. The red Mustang stood silent and still in the dark, like a reminder of how close he'd come to driving into a trap. But it wasn't the sabotage that kept playing over in his mind. It was her, the girl. The child who had burst from the shadows, wide-eyed, terrified, and yet somehow fiercely brave. She had risked everything to save him. A child who had nothing had done what no one else dared tell him the truth. And he couldn't stop wondering, how long had she been living here? How many nights had she gone to sleep cold and afraid, just feet from the warmth of his home, Emily? That was her name. He had learned it just before the police took her away. Emily, 6 years old. No known relatives. No one looking for her. Nathan couldn't ignore the hollow feeling in his chest when the social worker led her into the back seat of the government van, clutching a worn backpack and nothing else. She didn't look back, not even once. He tried to go back to his routines, the morning coffee, the meetings, the polished facade, but nothing felt the same. The mansion echoed differently now. He heard her silence everywhere. 3 days later, Nathan stood in the hallway of the children's shelter, staring at a row of closed doors. A young woman in a cardigan tapped gently on one of them. "She doesn't talk much," the social worker whispered. "She eats very little, barely sleeps. She has nightmares. We believe she's been on her own for a long time. I just want to see her." Nathan replied, his voice rough. When the door creaked open, Emily was sitting cross-legged on the floor, coloring with dull crayons. She didn't look up. "Hi," he said softly. "Do you remember me?" Her crayon stopped. She looked at him blank at first, and then her eyes narrowed like she wasn't sure if he was real. "I came to say thank you," he continued. "You saved my life." Silence. Nathan crouched down, leveling his eyes with hers. "I spoke to the court. I want to bring you home, just until we figure something out. Somewhere safe, somewhere warm." Her hand tightened on the crayon, but she said nothing. "I'll wait," he added gently. "As long as you need." It took 2 weeks of background checks, interviews, and endless paperwork. The lawyers weren't thrilled. He was single, had no parenting experience, and his life had just been rocked by attempted murder. But Nathan didn't back down. When he finally picked her up, Emily sat silently in the back seat, her face pressed to the window, watching the world pass without saying a word. "This is your room," he said softly, opening the door to a newly decorated bedroom. The walls were pale lavender, the bed covered in soft blankets. Toys sat neatly on shelves. A stuffed rabbit waited on the pillow. Emily walked in, sat in the corner, and stared at nothing. That night she screamed. Nathan rushed in to find her sitting bolt upright, eyes wide, gasping. When he reached out, she flinched and pressed herself against the wall like she expected to be hit. His heart shattered. The next morning he called Dr. Blake, a renowned child trauma therapist. "She's built walls," the psychologist explained after the first session. "Thick ones. Kids like Emily, they survive by disappearing. You can't tear the walls down. You have to show her brick by brick that she's safe." So Nathan did. He started every day with breakfast, even if she wouldn't eat it in front of him. He left notes by her door. He read her stories through the crack even when she didn't respond. He waited and waited. Until one evening he found a crayon drawing slipped under his door. It showed 2 stick figures beside a red car. One girl with wild hair was shouting. The man beside her had a startled face. He knocked gently. "Can I keep this?" he asked. Through the door a whisper, "Okay." It was the first word she'd said in 12 days. 3 months later, the house was no longer quiet. Footsteps padded down hallways. Laughter occasionally echoed from the kitchen. And Emily, still small, still guarded, had begun to speak. Simple things at first. Yes. No. "I like strawberries." She had made friends with Grace, the housekeeper, who taught her how to bake cookies. She had even started sleeping on the bed, not the floor. The stuffed rabbit had a name now, Max. Then one crisp morning, Emily rushed into Nathan's office, eyes wide. "There's a baby bird. It fell from the tree in the backyard. We have to help him." Nathan stood frozen. She had called him we. She had asked for help. He followed her outside, helped her cradle the tiny bird, and as they gently tucked it into a shoebox lined with towels, she whispered something that sent chills down his spine. "Thanks, Dad." She hadn't meant to say it. He could tell. It just slipped out, instinctive and honest. He didn't respond immediately, afraid any reaction might scare her back into silence. Later that night, after she fell asleep, he called his lawyer. "I want to start the adoption process." "You know it won't be easy," the attorney said. "Single man, high profile. Judges tend to prefer traditional families." "I don't care how long it takes," Nathan replied. "She's my daughter." But just as things began to feel like a new beginning, the past came clawing back. Detective Harris called one evening, with his voice low and tense. "It's Derek Lawson," he said. "He's out on bail. What we don't have enough to hold him long term." The messages on Vanessa's phone help, but nothing ties him directly to the sabotage. He's walking around free, and frankly, I don't like it. Someone like him might not let it go. Nathan felt ice in his veins. For the first time since that day in the garage, he felt truly afraid. That night, Emily found him pacing. "Are you mad?" she asked, her voice small. "No, sweetheart," he said, kneeling down. "Just trying to protect you." "Is it the bad man?" Nathan blinked. "How did you—" "I saw him watching the house 2 nights ago, from across the street." Nathan couldn't breathe. This wasn't over, and Emily knew it too. If you were Nathan, would you fight to keep her safe no matter the cost, or disappear to protect her from danger? Let me know in the comments. And if this story moved you, we'd be so grateful if you left a heart. The night Derek Lawson slipped into the mansion had been a turning point, not just in Nathan's life, but in Emily's too. That night had taught them both something deep, something beyond fear, that loved ones found had to be protected at all costs. But it was the days after that proved even more powerful. Derek had disappeared into the night after police sirens shattered the silence. Emily, clutching her shoebox of evidence, had given testimony that filled every gap in the prosecution's case. Her memory was sharper than any adult's. Every date, every detail, every whispered threat they poured out of her, with quiet conviction in a courtroom so still you could hear people breathe. Vanessa was sentenced to 25 years. Derek received 8. But justice wasn't what made the headlines. What stunned the public was that a 6-year-old girl, once homeless, hidden and forgotten, had saved a man worth millions, then healed a wound in him no one ever saw. It was only weeks later when Nathan received the call. "The adoption's been approved," his attorney said, barely able to contain the emotion in her voice. "She's yours. Officially." Nathan didn't cry often, but that day he did. When he told Emily the news that evening, she was in her unicorn pajamas, brushing Max, the stuffed rabbit, with a toy hairbrush. "So that means no one can take me away now?" she asked. "No one," Nathan said, kneeling beside her. "No matter what. You're my daughter now. Forever." Emily blinked, then jumped into his arms. "I already knew that," she whispered into his shirt, "but it's nice to hear it out loud." From that moment on, their lives didn't just stabilize, they bloomed. The once quiet and sterile Pacific Heights mansion was transformed. There were crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator, pajamas tossed carelessly on the couch, chocolate smudges on kitchen counters, laughter in the hallways. And in the backyard stood their greatest masterpiece, a 2-story treehouse painted by hand and full of wild colors. Emily had chosen every detail: the twisted rope ladder, the trap door, the reading nook under the skylight, the secret compartment with glitter and stickers. "This is for hiding treasure," she told Nathan seriously, "in case we ever need to be spies again." They spent hours in that treehouse reading, talking, dreaming. It was their shared world, untouched by the past. One golden evening, as the sky turned shades of orange and lavender, they lay side by side on the floor of the treehouse, watching clouds drift through the skylight. "Dad," Emily said softly, "yeah, do you ever miss your old life? You know, when you didn't have to deal with toys everywhere and glitter on your shoes." Nathan laughed, glancing at the sparkling trail that had somehow made its way onto his button-down shirt. "I thought I had a life back then," he said, "but really I was just existing. I didn't know what love felt like. Not the kind that shows up out of nowhere and completely wrecks your plans in the best way." Emily turned to him, thoughtful. "So, it was worth it. All of it. Even the scary stuff." He looked at her, his heart tightening in his chest. "I wouldn't trade a second of it," he said, "because it brought me you." Emily nodded, and for a long while they just watched the sky. Months passed. Emily flourished in school. Her teacher, Ms. Taylor, sent home notes every week praising her progress. She was no longer the girl who flinched at footsteps or avoided eye contact. She asked questions in class. She made friends. She even auditioned for the school play. One Saturday morning, Nathan found a book on his desk. It was titled "How to Be an Awesome Dad." Taped inside was a handwritten note for the best dad I could have ever asked for. "Love, Emily." He kept it on his nightstand. When Emily's adoption day came, they hosted a small party in the backyard. Grace baked cupcakes. Ms. Taylor came with a big gift bag full of art supplies. And Emily. She invited 3 other kids from the shelter ones who hadn't yet been adopted. "I want them to know what a real home feels like," she told Nathan. "Even if it's just for a day." He nodded too, moved to speak. That night, as she tucked herself into bed, Emily whispered, "I think the best part of having a dad isn't just feeling safe. It's not feeling invisible anymore." Nathan sat by her bed, brushing a hand gently over her hair. "You were never invisible," he said. "You just hadn't found someone who knew how to look." He stayed until her breathing slowed and her eyes closed. And for the first time in his life, Nathan knew exactly what it meant to live. Not for wealth, not for appearances, but for the small, quiet moments that stitched 2 hearts into one family. The mansion had become a home. The story that began in a forgotten garage had transformed into something none of them had expected, something enduring, something whole. Because sometimes the people we're meant to love don't come to us by blood. Sometimes they arrive like a whisper, a warning, a child running out of the shadows begging you not to get into a car. And if we're lucky, we listen. What do you think defines a real family blood, or the people who choose to love us unconditionally? Have you ever found family in the most unexpected place? How did this story make you feel? Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story moved your heart, please comment. Number 3 below. If you're unsure, comment number 2. And if it didn't resonate, feel free to leave number 1. We'd love to hear your honest thoughts. Also, tell us what country are you watching from. Your voice matters. Don't forget to send a heart, and share this story with someone you love. See you in the next heartfelt story.